You ate today. You ate yesterday. The day before yesterday. Every few hours, putting something in your mouth. A snack, coffee with milk, a cookie between tasks, lunch, dinner, something before bed. And your body has never, literally never in recent years, gotten a pause. Not a single day, not a single night, truly. Something is always digesting. Insulin is always working. The system is always busy with incoming traffic and never takes care of itself.
And now a question very few people ask. What happens to your body when you finally stop, when you stop feeding it from the outside and let it work from the inside? The answer will change how you think about food, about hunger, about what it really means to take care of your body.
My name is Sarah, and I'm 68 years old. Japanese monks practiced periodic fasting for 1,000 years, not as an ascetic restriction, not as a punishment, but as a tool, a precise, proven tool, one that modern science has only recently begun to understand in detail. Today, I will walk you through it hour by hour through 23 hours without food. What happens in your body in the first hour, the 4th, the 8th, the 12th, and in the 16th, when a process kicks in that won a Nobel Prize in 2016, hour by hour, organ by organ, cell by cell.
And at the very end, how to properly break a fast so you do not destroy everything you just accomplished.
Stay with me, because what you are about to learn is something you will remember every single time you reach for food when you are not actually hungry. Let us start at the very beginning, right at the moment you just finished eating. For the first 3 hours after your last meal, your body is busy with exactly one thing: processing what just came in.
The stomach breaks the food down into its components.
The small intestine absorbs the nutrients into the blood. Glucose, the sugar from carbohydrates, enters the bloodstream. Your blood sugar level rises. And this is where the pancreas steps in. It releases insulin, the master key hormone that unlocks your cells so they can take in that glucose.
Your muscles take the glucose.
Your brain takes the glucose. Your liver takes the glucose and converts a portion of it into glycogen, a backup sugar supply for later. This is a normal process, a correct one, an absolutely necessary one. But here is what you need to understand.
As long as your insulin levels are high, your fat cells are locked down.
Literally, chemically, completely locked. Insulin is not just a hormone that distributes glucose. It is a hormone that tells the body incoming fuel is sufficient. Do not touch the fat reserves. Think of it like a pantry secured with a heavy padlock. The key to that padlock is low insulin. As long as insulin is high, the lock stays shut, and the fat in the pantry sits entirely untouched. In Japanese tradition, there is a concept called kanta, the gateway of transition. In every significant process, there is a moment when one state ends and another begins. You cannot skip this moment. You cannot rush it. You simply have to let it arrive.
The first 3 hours after a meal are the time of the closed gates.
The body is occupied. The system is managing the incoming traffic, and most people never actually allow the gates to open because 3 or 4 hours later, hunger appears and they eat again. Insulin spikes back up, the gates slam shut, and the fat pantry remains untouched. Day after day, year after year, the body never gets the chance to tap into its own reserves. Here is a practical observation worth making today. The next time you feel hungry, wait 15 minutes before you eat. Just 15 minutes. Drink some water, sit still, and simply observe the hunger as a natural phenomenon rather than a command to take immediate action. You will discover something quite fascinating. Hunger is a wave. It rolls in, it peaks, and it very often rolls right back out without any food at all. This is not weakness. This is your body learning to operate in a completely different way.
But the first 3 hours are just the prologue, because at the 4th hour, something decisive happens. The 4th hour is the crossroads.
Your blood sugar level begins to drop. Insulin follows right behind it. The pancreas dials back its production. The body senses that the incoming fuel supply has stopped. And the stomach produces ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. It sends a very clear signal to the brain it is time to eat. That is exactly what you feel as a rumble in your stomach, a mild irritability, those thoughts about food that seem to pop up out of nowhere.
And right here is the fork in the road. If you eat, the cycle restarts. Insulin goes up, the fat pantry is locked away. The body continues to survive exclusively on incoming fuel. But if you do not eat, something else entirely happens. The liver gets a signal, begins breaking down glycogen, that backup sugar it was storing over the last few hours, turns it back into glucose, and releases it into the blood. The body keeps its blood sugar perfectly normal without a single bite of food, entirely from the inside, from its own reserves. This is called glycogenolysis, and it is the first piece of evidence that your body is an incredibly brilliant system. It knows exactly how to sustain itself. It just needs you to give it the opportunity. In Japanese tradition, the samurai understood something profound about hunger. They did not eat before a battle, and not because they lacked the time, but because they knew that a hungry body is sharper, faster, far more precise. A brain running on low insulin operates differently. One of the great warlords of feudal Japan used to tell his warriors, "A fed soldier guards the warehouse, a hungry one conquers." This is not cruelty. This is an understanding of human physiology that arrived through 1,000 years of quiet observation. In practical terms, what does this mean for you? The 4th hour is the exact moment when most people reflexively reach for food. Not out of genuine hunger, but out of habit. Out of the social script we all follow. 3 meals a day plus snacks. Try just once, just one single time, to walk through this moment without food. To drink some water. To wait. See what happens 20 minutes later. More likely than not, the hunger will fade. Your body will flip the switch to glycogen, and you will find that you can easily carry on with your day without having to eat immediately. That is the first step. But what happens at the 8th hour changes the game entirely. The 8th hour. The switch. The glycogen reserves in your liver are running low. The body has exhausted its first backup supply, and by this point, insulin has dropped quite low. So low, in fact, that an enzyme called lipase is activated. Lipase is the master key to the fat pantry. It literally unlocks the fat cells, those stubborn adipocytes. The cells that have been hoarding fatty acids for long months, the ones you tried to burn off at the gym, the ones that refused to leave despite all your diets. They did not stay because your body refused to let them go. They stayed because your insulin never stayed low long enough for lipase to actually get to work. At the 8th hour, lipase turns on. Fatty acids flood out of the fat cells and into the bloodstream. The body begins to use them as its primary fuel. This is not a metaphor. This is literal chemistry. Your own fat becomes your energy. In Japanese monasteries, the monks practiced fushin, a fast of the mind and body. They never called it a diet. They said, we give the body the opportunity to consume itself in order to become cleaner. In their eyes, this was not deprivation, it was purification, the removal of the excess, a return to the absolute essence. Modern science confirms that this is exactly how it works. The body begins to eat its own surplus, not your muscles, but your fat.
the very things that accumulated far beyond what was actually needed.
But here is the fascinating part. At the 8th hour, many people report something completely unexpected. The hunger drops. It does not build. It fades because the body has finally received fuel from its fat reserves. It is no longer starving. It does not need anything from the outside. It found what it needed on the inside. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, drops. The drive to eat loses its volume. A person who has not eaten for 8 hours actually feels less hungry than they did at the 4th hour. It sounds like a paradox, but it is pure physiology. Practically speaking, what does this mean? If you decide to experiment with intermittent fasting, the hardest stretch is between the 4th and the 8th hour. That is where the hunger signals peak. That is where your habits scream the loudest. If you can walk through that fire, it gets easier. Not harder, easier. So many people who tried and quit exactly in this window, never making it to the moment when the body resolves the issue all on its own. But the 8th hour is still not the main event, because the 12th hour fundamentally changes how your brain operates. The 12th hour, ketosis and mental clarity. By the 12th hour, the body has transitioned to fat fuel entirely. Fatty acids flow into the liver, and the liver does something truly remarkable. It converts them into ketone bodies. Ketones are an alternative fuel source for your brain when the brain knows exactly how to use instead of glucose, and one that is by every metric far more efficient. Here is why this matters. Glucose is cheap, fast fuel. It gives you a sharp spike of energy, and then it sharply runs out. Sound familiar? You eat something sweet, you get a rush, and an hour later, you crash. You want more. This is called the glycemic roller coaster, and most people live their entire lives strapped into that ride. Up and down, up and down. Ketones operate differently. They provide a smooth, steady stream of energy with 0 spikes and 0 crashes. The brain runs on them with deep stability for long stretches without a single interruption. This is exactly why people at the 12th hour of a fast often describe something they did not see coming. Not weakness, but absolute clarity. The brain fog that used to be permanent background noise just evaporates. Thoughts become crisp. Concentration becomes razor sharp. This is not a placebo effect. It is a literal change in fuel. In Japanese monasteries, Zen masters held their longest meditation sessions specifically during periods of fasting. Not because the rules demanded it, but because they knew it from deep experience. A hungry mind is clearer, sharper, far more capable of deep, profound work. One of the great masters of calligraphy once said, "My best characters are written between meals." After eating, the hand moves, but the mind sleeps. Now, we know exactly why. Ketones in the brain are like swapping out muddy water in a camera lens for crystal clear glass. It is the exact same hardware, but a completely different quality of picture. Here is a practical observation you can test right now. If you regularly feel brain fog after lunch, it is almost certainly tied to your insulin response to the food. Your brain switched from fat to glucose fuel, and while the system tries to stabilize itself, you feel sluggish and heavy. Try skipping lunch just once, or make it incredibly light, completely free of fast carbohydrates, and just watch your level of focus in those afternoon hours. The result will genuinely surprise you. But the 12th hour is not the grand finale, because at the 16th hour, something happens that actually wins Nobel Prizes. The 16th hour, autophagy. In 2016, a Japanese scientist named Yoshinori Ohsumi won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering a mechanism that has always existed in every single cell of your body. It is just that no one before him understood how it worked in such exquisite detail. This mechanism is called autophagy. From the Greek
auto meaning self, and phagy meaning to eat. Self-eating sounds terrifying, but in reality, it is one of the most elegant systems nature has ever engineered.
Here is how it works. Inside every cell, garbage accumulates over time. Damaged proteins, defective mitochondria, the power plants of the cell that have stopped working properly, fragments of viruses and bacteria, just old cellular junk. Under normal conditions, when insulin is high and the cell is busy processing glucose, there is neither the time nor the resources for cleaning up. The cell is handling incoming traffic, and the garbage just piles up. But at the 16th hour of a fast, when insulin is incredibly low and the cell has switched into conservation mode, autophagy kicks in. The cell creates special structures called autophagosomes. They literally sweep up the intracellular trash, wrap it up tight, and deliver it to the lysosomes, the cellular incinerators. Inside the garbage is broken down into its base components, and those components are recycled as building materials for new proteins to repair damaged structures to build something entirely new. The cell eats its own trash and turns it into something deeply useful. This is not just poetic. It has profound practical consequences. The buildup of damaged proteins in our cells is directly linked to Alzheimer's, to Parkinson's, to various forms of cancer. Autophagy is the specific system that clears out exactly this accumulated toxic waste. It is not a magical cure for diseases, but it maintains the cells in a way that keeps them healthy for a much longer time. In Japanese tradition, there is a concept known as kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The cracks are not hidden. They are filled with gold and become a part of the object's unique beauty. The damage literally becomes the restoration. Autophagy is kintsugi on a cellular level. What is broken is not just thrown away. It is melted down into something new. The monks in our monastery used to say, "The body knows exactly how to fix itself. It only requires silence to begin the work." They had never heard the word autophagy, but they understood the principle perfectly. 1,000 years before the Nobel Committee ever existed. In real terms, what does this actually mean for you? 16 hours is the threshold where autophagy unfolds in its full power. This is exactly why the 16-8 intermittent fasting protocol, 16 hours without food, and an 8-hour eating window has become the most widespread practice in the world. It is not extreme. It is biologically sound. The absolute easiest way to hit 16 hours is to finish your dinner by 8 in the evening and not eat again until noon the next day. You are sleeping through the vast majority of that time. The active fasting is really only 4 to 6 hours in the morning. And during that quiet window, your cells are doing a massive deep clean. But there is something else happening right alongside autophagy, something that shatters one of the most persistent myths about fasting, the myth of muscle loss, and why human growth hormone changes everything. The most common fear people have when they hear the word fasting is, "I am going to lose my muscle." It is a logical thought. If there is no food, there is no protein. If there is no protein, the body eats its own muscle. But it is completely false, and here is why. When a human being goes without food for long enough, the pituitary gland, a tiny structure at the base of the brain, radically ramps up the production of human growth hormone, increasing it 2 to 5 times over a 24-hour period. Growth hormone is a very clear signal the body sends to the cells. Do not touch the muscle tissue. Use the fat reserves, but protect the muscle protein at all costs. This is profound evolutionary wisdom. Our ancestors survived periods of starvation constantly. If the body burned muscle during those times, they would never have survived, because you need muscle to hunt, to move, to track down your next meal. The body knows this, and it aggressively defends your muscles specifically when you are not eating. Growth hormone reroutes the fuel pipeline. Only fat
only fatty acids. The muscle tissue becomes completely untouchable.
This does not mean you can fast forever. It simply means that moderate, periodic fasting does not destroy your muscles. On the contrary, the growth hormone released during these exact hours is one of the key factors in preserving and rebuilding muscle tissue. The Japanese samurai were legendary for their sheer physical power. Yet, they practiced periodic fasting on a regular basis. Not because there was a shortage of food, but because it was a foundational part of physical discipline. They did not wither away, they became stronger. The connection between fasting and physical strength is not an accident. It is pure physiology. Here is one practical shift in how you view hunger. When your body feels hungry after 8 to 12 hours without food, it is not a red flashing warning light. It is a signal that the body has successfully flipped the switch to run on its own reserves. That growth hormone is stepping in to shield your muscles. That autophagy is rolling up its sleeves to clean house. In this context, hunger is not a threat. It is the ultimate proof that the system is working perfectly. But after the fast, it is incredibly important to break it correctly. And this is exactly where most people make a critical mistake that wipes out everything they just achieved. How to break a fast properly, and why it matters more than the fast itself. You just spent 16 to 23 hours without food. Autophagy did its deep work. Your fatty acids became premium fuel. Your brain is humming along on ketones. Growth hormone protected your muscles. And now, you are ready to eat. Most people do the exact same thing in this moment. They grab whatever is sitting in the fridge. They eat fast. They eat a lot. And they usually reach for something heavy in carbs and sugar, simply because they crave it, because they feel they earned it. And right there, in that one choice, the vast majority of the benefits vanish into thin air. Here is what happens if your first meal after a long fast is loaded with fast carbohydrates. Your insulin violently spikes. The body is in a state of hyperabsorption. It is literally primed to soak up absolutely everything that comes its way. The cells are wide open. The enzymes are fully activated. The insulin spike at this moment is far more aggressive than usual. It slams your pancreas and immediately drags the body back into a high insulin state, completely wiping out that beautiful, low insulin baseline you worked so hard to build. The Japanese monks understood this intuitively. After a long fast, they always started incredibly small with something very simple, with something that gave the body a chance to softly re-enter the world of food. Your first meal after a fast needs to follow a very specific sequence. First, protein. Eggs, fish, poultry. Just a little bit. Keep it light. Protein provides amino acids, the raw building blocks needed for recovery after autophagy. Your cells just finished tearing down all those damaged proteins. Now they need raw materials to build fresh ones. Next, healthy fats. An avocado, a handful of nuts, a drizzle of olive oil. Fats do not trigger an aggressive insulin spike. They provide a steady burn of energy and keep your ketone levels elevated for just a little while longer. And only after that do you bring in the micronutrients. Leafy greens, vegetables, sources of potassium and magnesium, which were heavily drained during the metabolic heavy lifting of the fast and desperately need to be restocked. The order is crucial. Not a chaotic mix on a plate, but a deliberate sequence. In the Japanese tea ceremony, there is a principle called ma, the perfect intentional pause between actions. No rushing, no frantic movement. Every subsequent action happens in its own time, only after the previous one is fully complete. Breaking a fast requires ma. Your body just finished a massive job. Give it the grace and the time to accept the next phase. Do not rush it. Here is a practically foolproof protocol for breaking a fast. Your very first meal.
2 or 3 eggs.
Or a small piece of fish, a handful of almonds, a little bit of greens. Then you wait an hour or an hour and a half.
The second meal can be much more substantial. Now you can introduce complex carbohydrates, vegetables, a little bit of whole grains if you really want them. Carbs and sugars never belong in that first meal. Never right away. Let your system rebuild its insulin sensitivity gradually. That patience is what preserves everything you achieved during those hours of fasting. Now let me pull all of this together for you, hour by hour. For the first 3 hours, the body is digesting insulin, is running high. The fat pantry is locked tight. The system is busy with what just came in. The 4th hour is the crossroads. Ghrelin creates the sensation of hunger. Most people cave and eat, and the whole cycle starts over. For those who wait, the body simply pivots and begins breaking down glycogen.
The 8th hour is the grand switch.
Glycogen runs out. Insulin drops incredibly low. Lipase throws open the doors to the fat reserves. The body transitions to burning its own fat for fuel. The 12th hour, ketosis. The liver starts pumping out ketones. The brain gets a flood of clean, hyper-stable fuel. The fog lifts. Absolute clarity arrives. The 16th hour, autophagy, the Nobel Prize-winning process. Your cells begin a massive, internal, deep clean.
Damaged proteins and defective structures are broken down and recycled into fresh building materials.
Right alongside it, growth hormone surges. The pituitary gland throws a shield over your muscles, rerouting the entire fuel pipeline exclusively to your fat stores. And then, the exit. First protein, then fats, then micronutrients. Slowly, gradually, without a trace of a rush. My friend, this is not a diet. This is finally understanding how your own machinery works.
It is a weapon you have carried with you your entire life, even if you never knew it was there.
One last thing I want to leave you with. The Japanese monks did not fast because it was a trendy lifestyle choice, not because they read about it in a book, but because they observed the human body for thousands of years and saw exactly what happens when you finally grant it a pause. They saw the blinding mental clarity that arrives at the 12th hour. They felt the profound lightness in the body that takes over when the fat reserves finally get to work.
They saw that the body is infinitely smarter than we give it credit for.
We needed a Nobel Prize just to explain the biology of what they already knew through quiet practice. Your body knows exactly how to heal itself. It knows how to clean itself. It knows how to use every single thing it has stored away. It just needs the opportunity. It needs you to get out of its way, to stop constantly flooding it with incoming traffic, and to let the system do its quiet, beautiful work from the inside out.
Hunger is not your enemy. It is simply the signal that the real work is about to begin. Let it begin.
And a vital reminder before you click away from this video. If you have any underlying medical conditions, diabetes, thyroid issues, or metabolic disorders, please talk to your doctor before you start experimenting with any fasting protocols. The information in this video is purely educational. Your health always, always comes first. Drop a comment down below and tell me, have you ever tried intermittent fasting before? And what did it actually feel like for you? Or what surprised you the most out of everything we talked about today? I read every single comment always. Hit that like button if you look at hunger a little differently today than you did yesterday. And be sure to subscribe. We have so many more conversations ahead of us about how to truly understand your body and let it do what it was always designed to do. I will see you next time. Yeah.
Hearing this story completely changed how I view not just hunger, but the very rhythm of our modern lives. We live in a world that constantly demands we consume, whether it is food information or endless distractions.
Yet the profound lesson here is that true healing and clarity come from the pause. Just as our cells need empty space to clear out the toxic waste and rebuild, our minds and souls require moments of absolute stillness to find peace. This narrative is a beautiful reminder that our bodies carry an ancient, brilliant wisdom that we often drown out with noise. Embracing that uncomfortable feeling of emptiness is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate gateway to self-renewal. When we stop rushing to fill every void, we finally allow ourselves to heal from the inside out. This philosophy extends far beyond the dining table and reaches into how we treat ourselves with compassion. We must learn to trust that we already have exactly what we need within us to survive the difficult moments. Like the beautiful concept of kintsugi, our internal struggles and the cellular cleanup represent our ability to turn our broken pieces into something golden. Applying this to daily life means having the courage to step back, to wait 15 minutes before reacting to any urge or frustration. It teaches us patience, reminding us that discomfort is often just a temporary wave rolling through our consciousness. By giving ourselves the grace to simply be, we unlock a level of mental clarity and strength we never knew we possessed. Ultimately, this is about reclaiming our autonomy and treating our physical vessel with the deep respect it rightfully deserves. When we finally grant ourselves permission to pause, we invite true harmony back into our existence. Please remember that the story and the concepts shared today are strictly created for educational purposes to inspire personal reflection. Disclaimer: the information provided is entirely meant for educational and informational purposes and does not constitute medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. You must always consult with a qualified healthcare professional or your personal doctor before making any changes to your diet, starting any fasting protocols, or altering your lifestyle, especially if you have pre-existing medical conditions. Your health and safety must always come first.